Good morning, everybody. Sorry for a few minutes delay. I was just waiting for our IT team to come and join. I am going to start with the final, class on Sudraka, and we will basically talk about some of the themes in the play, and hopefully that we would be done with this. And then in the last class, with me at least, not your last class. So the last class which I will do with you guys would be on the 21st, and over there we will do the two background readings. Well, you have I think 4 background readings, 4 or 5, and which is one of the units. It's called Unit 5 readings. So for those of you who are aware of the syllabus, you have Kalidasa, you have Sudraka, you have Chilapatikaram, and then you have the Mahabharata, and then you have Unit 5, which are a bunch of essays, basically what you would do. So out of those essays, 2 of them would be on, one of them is actually on the character of Draupadi, and the other one would be the idea of rasas in from Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. So that's why we have already touched upon what Natya Shastra is. So what is going on next is that, as you already know the system, you can ask your questions in the Q&A. The Q&A is only exclusively for asking questions from what we are studying today in the course, and you cannot, please do not ask me questions about, putting you in a WhatsApp group and things like that. Like, keep it specific to Sudraka and nothing else. And I'm going to start with it. So you can, I'm assuming you can all see the PowerPoint, and so this is going to be the last class. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is how, I want to talk about the title. And today throughout the class, you will find instances where there is a, where we had already talked about how Sanskrit drama is, and we will see how it is still conventional Sanskrit drama, the way we understand what Sanskrit drama is, but there are also some things which are different, where Sudraka sort of intentionally deviates from the typical idea of how Sanskrit drama should be. So regarding the play, regarding the title of the play, I told you in the last class that usually in Prakarna plays, if it's about a love story, then the name of the hero and the heroine would be combined to make the title of the play. However, in this case, that is not the case. In this case, in Mirchakataka is really not the combination of the name of the hero and heroine. It simply means the little clay cart. And where does this title come from? It is the title which really comes from this. There's this one small scene where, Charudatta's son, Rohan Sena, he is playing with a little, he's playing with a little clay cart. And what is happening here is that in the scene we see that this little boy, he wants to have a gold cart, and he's really embarrassed of his very cheap clay cart. And remember that that his father Charudatta, he's very poor because he's a very generous man and he gives his money to others to help. So Rohan Sena doesn't have a nice expensive gold cart. So he just has a small clay cart. And then in this scene, what happens is Vatsasena is the courtesan that we talked about. She offers her jewelry. She says that, okay, here's my jewelry and you can buy a gold cart with it. Now, the episode of this little clay cart is also it's a very small little scene. Like, you don't see the clay cart coming up ever. There's this one little reference in the scene, and that's it. So, but then this is crucial, because it sort of links to all the other major themes of the play. So basically, the clay cart is seen as a symbol, right? And a symbol of what now? It is a symbol of domestic life. Okay, it is a symbol of, so it sort of symbolizes the domestic life, the very simple, the very humble world of Charudatta, right? And this is and the fact that she says that, okay, I will give you my. She says, Vasanta Sena, she gives money to, she gives her jewelry to Rohan Sena to buy a clay cart. So to buy a gold cart. So this means that she's sort of adding value. She's adding something important. She's adding value to Charadatta's ordinary existence. All right, so that is one interpretation. Now there is another interpretation of this, which is that Vasanta Sena's offering, it can be like, she's saying that, okay, here, you can take my jewels and you can buy yourself a gold card. It can be seen as a desire, like her offering her jewelry, of course, so that the child can buy a gold card, is seen as a desire on her part to have a very domestic life, like to have a domestic ordinary life, just the way Charudatta has. Okay, she wants to basically have the life of Charudatta. So the clay card, on one hand, symbolizes a very domestic homely life, and it also, this scene also symbolizes or shows or sort of indicates how Vasanta Sena has a desire to have a domestic earthy life, right? So it is also in this scene that, when she does something for this child, it also shows it. She's also showing her desire to be a mother, so maternal yearning. She's trying to be a mother, and and also by giving up the jewelry box, she's sort of giving away, or like renouncing, giving away the things that symbolize her isolation and her childless peripheral existence. What peripheral existence means, that there are always people in this, like what we understand is that there are always people in the society who are sort of outcasts, who are not essentially seen as the center of the society. The center of the society would be a family, a mother, father, husband, wife, child, so on and so forth. So there are characters like, let's say, drug addicts or gamblers or prostitutes, and they're sort of seen at the corners and the margins of the society, because we don't see them as essentially as a part of the society, right? So and so all these jewels which she has, she's gotten them, she's earned them, because she is a courtesan. So there are men who come to her for sexual play favors or whatever, for entertainment. And so this, like the jewels in your face, it symbolizes that she is wealthy, but at the same time, these are the reasons, like the fact that she's a courtesan is the reason why she sort of lives in isolation, meaning that she doesn't have a husband, and so on and so forth, and of course that's also the reason why she doesn't have a child, and therefore she's sort of pushed in the margins. So by giving away jewelries which she has gained as a courtesan, in a way, indirectly, symbolically, she is sort of she's taking away the things that sort of make that put her in this peripheral existence. Okay, and she has gained and so she and by giving it away to reject her so-called or desire for getting away from her profession, it also means that by giving it away, she wants to be a part of, have a domestic life, a traditional life. And so yeah, so that is basically the idea, and you can it has multiple interpretations, as you can see. Now, on the other hand, the play is also a summation of the Hindu concept of seeing life as a wheel or chakra. So as you can understand, so clay card, of course, has wheels, right? Like it's a card, so it has wheels, and it is also reflexive of the idea of Hindus, how Hindus see life. So they see it as a chakra, which means that there's a continuum. So unless and until you are able to get moksha, like you die and you escape the life circle of being reborn again and again and again. So it just one of those. So sort of also symbolizes that. And so when the now next thing is that and the child wants a clay card. His friend has it, but his friend takes it away. So he's very embarrassed now, just that he's just, stuck with it. So when Vasanta Sena gives Rohan Sena jewels, gives away her jewels so that he can buy a gold card, then it turns from a clay card to a golden card. Okay, right? So he can now, and this also symbolizes the triumph of, the triumph of poverty over riches, meaning that, like by getting the gold card, he has sort of won over poverty, right? He has won over poverty. The clay card was representative of poverty, and the gold card, which the child's friend had, was representative of being rich. So when he gets the jewels and he's able to buy a gold card, that just means that it shows it sort of represents that poverty can be overcome, right? Now, as for the idea of, the wheel or the chakra, there are many patterns. There are many things that sort of, go in a pattern of which are cyclical. Cyclical means which are or like, you can say cyclical. And so, for example, the idea of how things are cyclical basically comes from the notion that we say that, if you do good, then good things will happen to you. Basically, the idea of karma means, as we say, or as we say in Hindi, which would be kar bhala to ho bhala, right? And now the fate, for example, remember there was an exiled prince Araka, and he was captured by the evil prince, the evil king who was ruling the king of the city of Ujjain. And Araka, who was supposed to be the rightful king, he escapes, and then he tries to get his, throne back, when he tries to get his kingdom back. And then there's the gambler, remember the gambler or the shampooer, sort of, who loses all the money, and then and then Vasanta Sena helps him pay away his debt, and then he becomes a monk, right? So the idea here is that, this all, so when, how is it cyclical, in the sense that Arakya, who was supposed to be the prince, was then put into a dungeon, but then he ultimately ends up becoming the king again. Similarly, the gambler sort of loses all his money, the shampoo loses all of his money, but then in the end, by becoming a monk, he replaces, literal money with like spiritual wealth, right? So now the play, and the clay cart scene, which is in Act 6, is basically is also a metaphor for universal expanse, meaning that, we are always, so the boy's desire to have a gold cart, so it sort of shows that how we humans we always want prosperity. It is something we are constantly yearning for, right? And now, do remember that this little scene, that actually this clay cart, it doesn't have any particular value. Like, it is not particularly important as a literal thing in the play. So it has a lot of symbolic value. It doesn't have any particular value. And ultimately, and finally, the main thing you should remember is that she offering to give the jewels so that the child can buy a new clay cart, a new gold cart. Sort of just main thing is that it symbolizes, Vasanta Sena's desire to have a domestic life. Okay. Now, we have already talked a lot about how the society is represented, and we talked about that this is basically a prakarna play, and in a prakarna play, they essentially represent how a society should be like. Okay, so how it should be like, how it should function, and so on and so forth, right? So what we see is that we don't see, as opposed to, like, heroic dramas in Indian classical theatre, what we are really seeing here is that we are seeing the lives of local people, of common man. And when we talk about this, like, there are different factors in this world that define the life of common people like us. So the first thing that we are looking at would be how class and caste are the two aspects of of the Indian society that we see. Now, throughout the progress of the plot, you sort of gain an understanding of class hierarchies and divisions, like class hierarchies and also caste hierarchies and division. And the society in Mirchakataka has, of course, that it represents different castes, it represents different classes, and also economic strata. Now, what are the different castes you're seeing? So, of course, the hero is a Brahmin, and then we also see characters like, then of course there's the character of the king, which is a Kshatriya, and there's the villain who's Samstanaka, and he's also a Kshatriya. So things like that. And then we see normal characters, like everyday characters, and then we don't really know what is the caste of Vasanta Sena, and that is important because, in the sense that caste is essentially what we call patrilineal. Patrilineal meaning that your caste is defined by who your father is. Okay, and Vasanta Sena is a courtesan. We don't know about her past, so we don't know what exactly is her caste. Okay, now, and also for women, like, let's say, like for courtesans, the issue of caste is not, like, their caste sort of becomes irrelevant because she is, because when do we care about caste? It's when we are in a life of matrimony, when we're in a life of domesticity, and she isn't really doing any of that, right? So So then they are like, so that is one of the things. And then we also see that just because somebody is wealthy doesn't necessarily mean that they are good. For example, the king is of course really wealthy, and but then he's the main, so then he's corrupt and he's evil. His brother-in-law who lusts after Sena is also evil. And we see that the poor characters can be good. Like for example, Charudutta is a very good, is a very kind man. Now now so in this way, and women are marginalized. So what do you mean by, what is the meaning of the word marginalized? Marginalized is something which means that you are not seen as somebody, you're treated as an inferior. Okay, so women are basically treated as an inferior to men. All right, so and what we see right now is that rich people being corrupt and poor people being nice, and things like different class societies, different class structures sort of clashing and things like that. They are not really these are just not even concepts that are very specific to the Indian ancient India. These we still have them. So the only thing which has actually changed is that there used to be actually a system of slavery, in the sense that a lot of rich people would have servants, or we would call them servants, but they're actually slaves. Like they don't get a salary, you know. So so in that sense, we don't really have that anymore, thank goodness. But but the need is basically to ensure, to understand that the society which Sudraka represents in his play is still very much a part of our Indian culture. Some things have changed, but some things have sort of remained the same. Now let's talk about prostitution in ancient Indian society, right? So now you have to be very careful and just sort of be very mindful of the fact that prostitution was not illegal in ancient India. It is illegal now. Okay, but that does not really mean that it doesn't happen. It still happens. It is illegal now, but in ancient India, it was sort of seen as, it was not seen as something that is illegal. Like, now do keep this in mind, that just because prostitution was legal, that does not automatically mean that all the men or the Indian society respected prostitutes. All right, now prostitutes were often, they were always, they could sing, they could dance, and of course they had special idea, like they had special idea of how to give sexual service. Okay, so, and here, both unmarried and single men had mistresses. And they would go to prostitute, and they did not hide it. They did not think it was bad or whatever. All right. And however, here's the problem, right? So, however, the now courtesans, they did not really have the right to ancestry. Ancestry, as in that they could not claim that I am so and so's daughter and blah blah blah, because as I just said, that courtesans do not necessarily function within the caste system, because they're seen as outcasts, okay, because of their profession. So they don't have a right to ancestry. They cannot say that he's my father, so I am, like, my father is a whatever Kshatriya, so I'm also Kshatriya. So they can't do that. They can't claim that. And also they are not allowed to own any property. So this is very important, because we don't, even though we see that she lives in a very nice, in a very fancy house or whatever, her own wealth, like what does she herself possess, is actually just her jewelry. Like we do not say that she talks about, oh, this is my big house or whatever. Like she doesn't have any land or any kind of property deed or anything like that. So this was because women were not allowed to possess it, like courtesans were not allowed to possess it. So therefore, the only way that she would have wealth is through her jewelry. Okay. Now, she's also aware of Charudatta's love for her, but she is also aware at the same time that she cannot own him. Like she cannot be married to him. And why? Precisely because she's a courtesan. And at the same time, she, her love for, she is very maternal. Like what she does to Rohan Sena, and she gives him her jewels to buy a new car. That's a very maternal thing to do. And so she, and her desire to sort of give this child her jewelry so that he can buy a toy, shows that she feels a sense of loss, that she's missing out on being a mother, she's missing out on this domestic life. All right, so And another thing is that even though she's a wealthy prostitute, she can never own him. Like she cannot legally be with him. And another thing is that even if she gets married, like even if she has children of Charudatta, her children would not have a right over Charudatta's property or over Charudatta's claim, because precisely because these children would be illegitimate, because she is married, because she's not married to Charudatta, right? And in that sense, but she has a lower social standing compared to Chowdatta's wife, right? Compared to Rohan Sena's mother, because the woman here, when she has kids of Chowdatta, those children would be recognized as legitimate children of Chowdatta, which would not be the case with her. Okay, now I'm not saying that this is what happens in the film. It's just saying that this is how it would be. Okay. Now, when we talk about prostitution, it's also important to talk about basically the position of women, right? So, on the other hand, like we already talked about how the courtesans are not allowed to own property and and so on and so forth. However, on the other hand, Chowdatta's wife represents a very, she represents a completely powerless position of woman, right? Because even though, she has a rightful claim, like she's the wife of Chowdatta, so she has a claim over Chowdatta that Chowdatta has to take provide for her, and her children has to be like when she gives birth, her children has to be recognized as Chowdatta's children. However, she doesn't really have an identity of her own. Like what is she besides being somebody's wife? Is that it? So she's just somebody's wife and somebody's mother, and she doesn't have any other identity. So in this sense, she is inferior to Vasanta Sena, because Vasanta Sena is an independent woman. She doesn't depend on any man to provide her. Like she earns her own money. Okay, so in some ways, the wife is more has more privileges because she's a wife, a legal wife. But on the other hand, Vasanta Sena is more is superior than Charadatta's wife, because Charadatta's wife is completely dependent on her husband, and precisely because of this reason, if her husband does something bad, she cannot protest against it, because if she does, her husband might leave her, and then she would not have means to take care of herself. But here, Vasanta Sena is an independent woman. She earns her own money, right? And the whole idea of how money comes into it, Charadatta himself claims that it is the man's duty. It is the man's duty to give money and riches to his wife. It is the man's duty to take care of his wife. So therefore, when a woman offers money to her husband, when the woman says that, here, take this money or whatever, then the entire dynamics of the relationship is reversed. So he says that if I take money from my wife, then through money, a man becomes a woman. So basically, the idea is that it always has to be men who take care of money, and women are always the ones who are taking the money. Like if you take the money from a woman, then it is so embarrassing that you are like you're no longer a man. Okay. As in, like, you're no longer able to do your duties as what you should be doing as a man. Okay. Now, moving on, I am on slide 7, and so there are some subplots. Subplots basically mean that there is the main story. The main story is the story of Charadatta and Vasanta Sena, right? And the idea of subplots really is that that is not the only story which is going on. So there are a couple of other stories that run parallel and these are like some small other stories that sort of run parallel to the main story. And this is because, of course, we are showing a society. So of course, Charadatta and Vasanta Sena are not the only two people who who live there, like, right? So they are not the only two people who are in the society. So there are other people as well. So, for example, we have that little conversation. We have that little scene where this shampooer comes and he is followed by a gambling master saying that he owes him money, and then he converts, and then Vasanta Sena pays his debt, and then he decides that I'm going to give up gambling, and I'm going to become a monk. And here we see the impact of Buddhism in the society. And remember, when we were discussing how Sanskrit drama evolved, we also talked about how Jain and Buddhist traditions also influenced Sanskrit drama. And here we actually the scene where a gambler ends up becoming a monk is a symbol of how Buddhism had impacted the society. And there are other subplots, for example, the subplot about, Arak, who was supposed to be the real king. He was put into the prison and then he escapes, and then how he defeats the current king and the current evil king by leading a political revolution. And that is also a part of the play, which again represents the larger society during the time of Sudraka, where, one king would fight with another king, and they would take over their kingdom, and so on and so forth. So these are also very important things. They sort of represent the larger picture as well. And as you already know, we are seeing characters who are not just Brahmins, but we are also seeing a mix of characters starting from people who are executioners to housemaids, and all of them have different layers. There are different types of good and bad. Okay, and it doesn't. And as I said in the last class, it doesn't necessarily mean it is not an important thing to care about, to see that what exactly is their profession or what is their caste. Like, you are good and bad because of the person you are. It doesn't matter what your caste and your social standing is. Okay. Now, I'll now do, a character analysis of Vasanta Sena, because she is a very, she's one of the important characters. Now, the first thing that you already know and what you already realized by now, that she doesn't fit into, and in this, she doesn't fit into the very typical traditional role of, women who are seen as first their daughters, then their wives, and then their mothers. So she's a very unique paradox. Like, she's just a very big contradiction. Like, she doesn't fit into these traditional roles. Okay. Now, here's something which is important. So on one hand, she's the object of desire. So firstly, understand that in literature, we see the idea of an object and a subject very differently. They're seen as oppositions to each other. So you would be called a subject if you are an active in the story, if you're an active agent, meaning that you take things in your control and you respond to things, that you actively act to your consequences. Okay, while an object basically means that, you are passive and you are basically treated, and your character and your identity sort of defined by others. Okay, and the object also means that, you are reduced to literally an object. So we will talk about, or you will hear this a lot in the future, that how in society we objectify women. The idea of objectifying women is basically that you're not really treating them as another human being. You're sort of treating them as, let's say, objects of desire, or let's say as something who exists to give pleasure to men. Okay. So similarly, she's a courtesan, she's basically an object of desire. So she's basically she's a thing which people want to have, is how she's sort of treated. But on the other hand, she's also an independent subject. And this is because she has freedom, in the sense that, she can choose her clients, she can choose what she can do. She has control over her own money. So she is, on one hand, she's an object of desire, but being an object of desire, being a courtesan, also allows her, on the other hand, to be an independent subject where she's free. In the cases who are all, for women who are wives, they didn't have love marriage there. So whosoever decided that you will marry this man, you're stuck with it. You don't have any freedom of choice. But here she does. She can choose. She can decide who her clients could be. She makes money. She decides how she spends her money. She doesn't need her husband's permission. Okay. So that's the idea, that, she enjoys this economic power. She has money, which usually women don't really have. But now she has this economic power, but she lacks social rights. Social rights, money, identifying that, that she can be married. Of course, nobody wants to marry her because she's a courtesan. So she's not, and because of her courtesan identity, as I already said, that she's sort of pushed in the corners of the society. She is not seen as a decent part of the society. So there are some good things. So she has some benefits and she has some disadvantages. Okay. So she has independence, but at the same time, she doesn't have the privilege of being a married woman. And what are the privileges of being a married woman? That would basically mean that if you are married, then you don't have to do anything. Your husband is supposed to take care of you. And another thing is that if you are a married woman, then you also have a right to ancestry, meaning that your caste would be identified. And now you can, of course, say that, ma'am, why is that important? It's not, but for them in this society, this was important. Okay. And then However, in the end of it, and because she sort of realized, like even for her, she realized that, having that social identity of, having that conventional social identity of a wife, of being domestic, is something she wants. Okay, so and she sort of craves it. Like we see that she has a heart of gold when she gives away her jewelry to the child. So, in the sense that, she is okay to give up her economic independence so that she could have a domestic life. Now, of course, you can criticize it. You can say that why would she want to do that? She's an independent woman. Why does she want to do this? Yes, it's a good question. Why would she want to give up her economic independence and be like a completely dependent wife? But then keep this in mind that even if we know that something is not good or something is not particularly a good option, we still want it because this is what society wants us to do. So many people, even like in our generation, or like actually in your generation, you're much younger, would be that many of you might not want to get married, but you would still eventually do it because you think that this is the right thing to do. Okay, so, and you think that, oh, I must do it, or you think that if I don't, and you see everybody around you who's gotten married, and you think, so, even I want it because I don't know what I'm missing. So it's just that you crave for things which society thinks as normal, but something which is considered normal doesn't necessarily always have to be right. Okay, now we are going to move on we're going to continue Vasanta Sena's character analysis. Now, it is also very important, and we all that's why I asked you in the last class to talk about her profession. It is important that you understand what her profession is, and that's why we got into this whole argument. I asked you all that what does a courtesan mean? Now, a courtesan is basically not just a prostitute or a mistress, okay? And the idea of a mistress is basically, for those who don't know, it means that you are a married man and then you have an extramarital affair, but she's not just like a girlfriend, but you take care of this woman. So you have a mistress and you provide her with a house and you sort of go visit her. So she's like a second wife that you have not married. Okay, so that's an idea of a mistress, and a courtesan would usually be a companion or like kind of an escort to like wealthy men. Okay, and they're not just prostitutes. They already said they are very well versed. They know fine arts. They know music and dance. So they know the 64 kalas or fine arts. Okay, and Vasanta Sen, of course, as I told you over and over, that she has access to wealth because she is a courtesan, but she does not have access to a private life. Like, so basically, her life is public. Like, she is like the idea of her, she's a public commodity that you can go and you can technically just purchase her. So she's like a public commodity, and she has, so yes, she's getting money out of it, but she doesn't have the luxury of having a private domestic life. Okay, and while she's sort of seen as this very popular woman, the popular courtesan, but precisely because of her nature of work, she is not she's not sort of seen as the main. She's not seen as she's not fully included, or she's not seen a part of what an ideal society should be. Like, an ideal society should be husband, wife, child, grandparents, this and that. So she is not, the people like her, like courtesans and gamblers and so on and so forth, they're not seen as what we would call a proper society. So she's not included in that world. Okay, and now we have to talk about what Vasanta Sena and Chowdatta's relationship looks like, right? So as we already know, that Vasanta Sena gets more importance and she's admired, and by Chowdatta's heart. Then Chowdatta cares more. He admires her. He's attracted more to her than he does to his wife. Okay, and now Chowdatta's wife, of course his legal wife, she is granted domestic and marital rights. That that she will live with Chowdatta, and Chowdatta will take care of her, and her children will be taken care of Chowdatta, and so on. And here, what is happening is that while the wife gets sort of the legal rights of and the legal protection of her husband, that the whole idea of what the husband should provide for the wife. So she has that legal cover that her husband will provide for her. But the truth is that he doesn't really love her. So he doesn't love her. His passion is for Vasanta Sena, right? And what is really happening here is that his wife things about his wife is very, you know, and his wife doesn't really say anything. And in the very beginning of the play, when Chaudatta for the first time ever, he sees Vasanta Sena, and he says that even he finds her attractive, but at the same time he's very, very aware that she's a courtesan, and even he says that for maids are won by gold. Yeah, and the idea is that even though Chaudatta is very attracted and very much in love, or at least admires Vasanta Sena, he is unable to forget. He's unable to forget that she's a courtesan, and he thinks that even so, if I want Vasanta Sena's attention, if I want her time, then I have to pay for it. So it sort of reflects how how men just see courtesans as women who just want money for sex, really. And he sort of fails to recognize that that Vasanta Sena might actually love him, that she doesn't really want any money, and that is just selfless love. He doesn't realize it, okay? So, and we also see that she's a selfless woman, because when she gives away all her jewelry to her son to buy a gold cart, right? And in this scene, like the scene where she's giving away the jewelry, that scene has two rasas, or like two emotions, which is, one would be the Vatsalya rasa, which is fondness. Like, so it is not love, it is called fondness. Like, it is not romantic love, but just like how a mother would feel towards a child, like that, or how a father would feel towards a child. And of course the idea of karuna ras, because it's a love of sadness, in the sense that she is sad that she doesn't have access to that domestic life, okay, which we already discussed. Now, what are the personality and strength of Vastasena? So she clearly has some benefits. She clearly has some some effective goods and some effective bads. Now, what I'm going to do is I will continue with with Vasanta Sena's character analysis. So we're still going to keep doing that, and then I will touch upon Chaudatta, and we will try to understand how Chaudatta's character sort of functions, and then we will move on to some of the more themes of the play. Now, I'm not going to stop here because I have a lot to finish today, so I will not spend a lot of time looking at the chat and so on and so forth. But just keep this in mind that you just have to be very, very, like, be attentive, because this is something. It's not just me telling a story. Okay. Now I will try to answer some of the questions if we are able to finish it today, because we might not be able to do it, and I might try to take some time from the next class if we don't able to finish it. But that's why let's keep pushing. Okay. So what are we doing here is we are looking at Vasanta Sena, and what are her strengths, what are her weaknesses. So now, first of all, as far as relationships are concerned, okay, it is Vasanta Sena who makes a choice, and it is she who takes initiative. It is when they first see each other, they both find each other attractive, but it is she who takes the initiative. Like, it is she who sort of pushes towards, makes an attempt. What she does, like, when she escapes, when she's trying to get away from Samsthanaka following her, she enters Chaudatta's house, right, in the very beginning of the play, and she intentionally leaves her jewelry box there because she wants to have another excuse to come meet Chaudatta. Okay, so here it is she who's taking the initiative, and this is again a deviation. This is again a move away from what we typically understand to be a romance story. It is usually the hero who takes the initiative, right? Even now in Hindi cinema, it is the hero who sort of follows the heroine. So and usually how we see heroines in Sanskrit drama is that they are very devoted. Like, they have this they treat their husbands or their lovers as like gods, like the whole idea of like pati parmeshwar type. And it's like they're like they cannot see any wrong in their beloved, and they are just completely like, as you see in the case of Shakuntala, like she's completely like, you know, she sort of behaves like as a Dushyant is a god, you know. So it's like that. But here, and it's like, you know, you worship the person. That's where the whole idea of Pati Parmeshwar comes from. Even though, like, you know, in drama, it doesn't necessarily always have to be the Pati, but basically means that if a woman sort of adores and sort of worships her lover, okay. Now, what is happening in the case of Sudraka is that she is in love with Chaudhata. That is not denied, but she doesn't worship him. She doesn't think that he is God, okay. And that is fine, and she doesn't need to worship him as his god, because she does not see herself as just like a companion, just like an escort for other. That she has a personality of her own. She can take care of herself, and precisely because she doesn't have that dependent mentality that I am dependent on this man and therefore he takes care of me and therefore I must treat him as a god. She doesn't have that. She's basically you know, a person who who is an independent woman, so she can love. She's in love with Chaudhata, but she doesn't necessarily think that he's some kind of a savior, some kind of a god. So she doesn't really worship him, and that actually is what you would ideally define as a good relationship, where two people are independent and where they see each other as equal, not in the sense that, oh, one is superior than the other, okay. Then, if you remember, there's a scene where she frees her servant Mandanaka. Remember, there's like in the play, there's another subplot where a very poor Brahmin called Sarvilakha, he enters Chaudhata's house and then he steals the box of jewelry which Vasanta Sena had left in their house, and then he steals it to basically buy Mandanaka's freedom, who's a servant of who's a servant of Vasanta Sena, right? Yeah, and so he comes up and he shows up with the jewelry box and gives it to Vasanta Sena and says, here, take this and free Mandanaka. And in this scene, Vasanta Sena does not criticize him, does not say that I know this jewelry box. This is my jewelry which you have stolen and you're giving it to me. She accepts it and she just frees Madanaka. She frees her servant without asking for any money. She just says that, okay, you know, you're free, you can go. So this again shows how good she is. This again shows how nice she is. Okay, and the idea of, you know, now you're saying that why does it make her good if she's saying that, okay, you know, her servant can go. Understand that she's not just a normal servant. She is the fact that you know, Sarvalakha, he tries to pay Vasanta Sena to free the servant Mandanaka. It means that like during this time in the society, Mandanaka was most likely a slave. Like she could have been. She's not someone who is you know, who can be freed. Like she's bound to be a servant. So so Sudraka doesn't really get into it, but that's the logic behind why he's trying to buy the freedom of Mandanaka, because you can only buy freedom of a slave, right? Now, Vasanta Sena is basically, you know, so she's a very kind woman, and we also see her idea of kindness or generosity when she gives away her jewelry to Rohan Sena, the child, and she's also shown to be an extremely, you know, brave woman. We've seen that she's economically independent. She is just generally an independent woman. She's also very generous and she's kind. She frees her so-called slave without any money. She's also shown to be a very brave woman. Brave woman in the sense that, you know, in our society, even until now, women are expected to be protected. Like your brother is supposed to protect you, or your brother or your father or your husband is supposed to protect you. Here, she is basically, you know, constantly trying to fight against this villain and Samsthanaka, and he is a very important, like, he's not just any chichor from the street, okay, like, so he's basically somebody who is the brother-in-law of the king, so he has a lot of power and influence, and yet she is not scared that, oh my god, if I reject him, kya hoga, what will he do to me? So she still keeps rejecting him. She doesn't say, okay, fine, you know, I will be your, you know, your companion, or you know, I will, you know, I will take you as a client. She doesn't like him, so she keeps rejecting him. Okay, even that she's not scared of him being very powerful. So that again shows that she's a very brave character. And so in the sense that, now here's the thing, even though she's not a very submissive woman, meaning that she doesn't necessarily need to treat her partner as some kind of a bhagavan, she is not an unfaithful woman. That doesn't mean that, she's unfaithful, that she's cheating. Her love for Charlotta is real. And she also has, and she's not lacking motherly instincts. So we see that how she sort of cares for Charlotta's son. So so the idea is here is that just because you are a certain type of just because you are not treating your partner as some kind of a god, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be an unfaithful woman, that you will cheat on him, or that doesn't necessarily mean that you will be a bad mother. All right. So in this way, this makes her character a round one. This is the last point in the slide. What this really means is that people are not like in literature, and this is true in all genres of literature, we have characters that we say round or flat. Okay, a round character basically means that uske bahut sare character traits hote hain. So meaning that the person is not defined by just one thing. Like it's not that, oh, this person is rich or this person is greedy. So they will have multiple characteristics. Okay, and throughout the story also you see their personality, or you see how their personality plays out, or how their personality changes or even evolves, which is not the case here, but I'm just saying this is what a round character is. A flat character is somebody who doesn't change throughout the rest of the play, and maybe they're defined by just one characteristic. So we would have, let's say in a play, a boss, and he's a very evil or a very bad boss. So this whole character is just being bad, right? So a round character will have multiple characteristics, multiple personalities, not multiple personalities, but multiple personality traits. Okay, and so here he sort of what really ends up happening is that he sort of blends he takes ideas from, he does follow the whole pattern of Sanskrit drama, but at the same time he has this character like Vatsana, which is a very unique character in drama. Like you do have in Sanskrit drama, in ancient Sanskrit drama, there would be quotations, but there would be like minor characters. But here she is a full character with various traits, and we see that she's brave, she's economically independent, she is general, she's good, and so on. Okay. Now, because we've already talked a lot about and in detail about Vasanta Sena's character, which is arguably the most important character we have in the play, we are now going to briefly touch upon what Chaudatta is really about. Now, here we have and we are going to sort of start looking at some things, what Chaudatta is really. So what I'm going to do is, as you guys all know, I'm going to do till I'm going to do till slide 15. So I will do 4 more slides, and then we are going to jump into some questions. Okay. So if you want me to not take questions now, or just sort of keep continuing, then just say, or just type in the chat, because I will know if you have any questions. Okay, so I will take a pause in another maybe 10 minutes, and then I will look at questions. Right. So if we do it till 15, we are quite ahead of our schedule, and we have sort of picked up fairly quickly. And so yeah, continuing now. When we talk about Chaudatta, and again, now in this case again, we see, and from the very beginning, we're told that he's a. Well, first, if you remember, I said that he's a Brahmin, and remember that the idea of like what Sudraka is doing is trying to show a play which is all inclusive, meaning that we're trying to show a play which is about the human society, right? But even when he depicts the so-called human society, and yes, he shows a lot of characters, but the main character, remember, is still essentially a Brahmin. So the main character is still a character from the highest caste of society. Okay, so do keep that in mind. So it is not that inclusive. It is not the story of let's say a person who's seen as untouchable. So it is still, even when we talk about the society, they are being shown part of a very privileged society. So do keep that in mind. It's a critical comment, so that you should be aware of this. So Chardatta is a very noble man. He's a very sensitive man. He gets affected very easily by seeing people in poverty, people in pain. So he keeps trying to help them. He keeps giving away their money, and so on and so forth. So he's in a very respectable, and even though he's poor, he's still treated as a very respectable man, right? So his state of poverty is a result of his very charitable nature. Like, he's not automatically poor, but he is in poverty. He is in poverty because he is sort of treated as because he just gives away all his money. And the fact that he's poor because he's so generous is, of course, it's not shown as, oh, he's so stupid that he's poor now because he's given away all his money. It is shown as a positive trait. It is we see him as a very caring man, as a sensitive man. Okay. Now, according to Bharat's Natyashastra, and we will also talk about, well, Natyashastra is a big book. It has like some 36, it's like a volume, okay, and it has like some 36 books, and we are only going to look at 36 chapters, and we are only going to look at chapter 6 in the next class because it's a part of your syllabus. What you need to know for now is that Natyashastra has basically 4 types of heroes, okay, or what we would call Nayakas. So there would be a Dhirudatta. A Dhirudatta basically means somebody who's brave and haughty. Brave and haughty means somebody who gets angry very quickly, not haughty in the sense that what you might understand. Then there is another type of hero that we call Dhiralalita. Dhiralalita means somebody who's very brave and who's very sportive, like somebody good at sports. Then there would be another hero would be Dhirudatta, who is brave and generous, right? And then the fourth one is Dhiru Prasanta. Dhiru Prasanta means somebody who is brave and calm. All right. So now judging from Chardatta's innate nature, like the way we see him in the play, and do keep in mind that how the option of brave is like just general, like the idea of Bharat Muni, like who wrote Natyashastra, for him a hero just must always be brave. It can't be anything else. Okay, so and you can be brave or something else. So if you look at the character of Chardatta, he is not like, bravery doesn't always necessarily have to be in the sense of fighting a war or something like that. Like, you don't have to be physically aggressive to be brave. So bravery comes in many forms. So from the way we see, so the idea of being brave can also be seen that the fact that he's so generous and he doesn't care about his own poverty is also a form of courage. Like, you're strong enough, you're courageous enough to give your money away to other people so that they can have a better life, right? So in this sense, what is happening is really that Chardatta has this like, so what we see, or what he mostly is, he's basically a brave and generous person. So he's a Dhirudatta. However, at the same time, we also see that he's also very calm. Like, he doesn't get angry very quickly. He doesn't react very quickly. So he also has some hints of Dhiru Prasanta. So in this sense, what he's doing is that he is following the rules which Bharat Muni had laid down as to how heroes should be. He's also sort of innovating. He's combining two types of heroes that Bharat Muni defines. So he's not just a Dhirudatta, he's also Dhirudatta, and at times he's also representative of Dhiru Prasanta. Okay. Now, when we talk about when the play begins, he is in a very Chardatta. We see that he's not in a very good mood. He's very sad, and he's talking about his friends, and he's saying that he's talking about his friends who have sort of stopped who've stopped to visit him or stopped being friends with him because he's now poor. And in this first scene, he is established as this very calm and a very melancholic, and has a very melancholic nature. Melancholic nature means that he is like बहुत ही दुखी टाइप, बहुत दुखी मायूस टाइप का बंदा है वो, ठीक है. But at the same time he's calm, like he is upset and he's sad in the beginning of the play because he's telling his friend Maitreya that because वो अभी गरीब है तो उसके friends ने उससे बात करना छोड़ दिया. So and then he is calm but he's also sad कि उसका ऐसा हुआ, okay. And and at the and at the same time you know, he is, you know, he's a very quiet and a very, you know, melancholic character. But at the same time, with Vasanta Sena, we see him as very chivalrous. Chivalrous means, like, you know, men who treat women with a lot of respect. Okay, like you have this whole code of, like, you know, how you should be treating women and so on and so forth. So he's very chivalrous, and the idea is that he is a very and he's very, like, you know, with a lot of spunk, basically, like, you know, he is trying to he shows us, and then later on, as the play sort of continues, we also see other personality traits of Shaudatta coming up. This is similar to how we see, as the play continues, we see certain character traits of Vasanta Sena coming up. So the same thing happens to Shaudatta. So in the beginning, we see him as calm and sad. Then we see him as very chivalrous when he starts to talk, when he meets Vasanta Sena. And then later on, in the remember, there's a scene where Vasanta Sena visits the second time when she visits Chaudatta's house. There's a storm and they get trapped in the same house. And at this time, he becomes, like, you know, his mind is filled with poetic imagination, meaning that, you know, it's a very stereotypical thing that, you know, suddenly you are in love and you start reciting poetry and all of that. So, and then he says, the untimely storm afflicts the blackened sky and the wistful lover's heart. So I'm just reading from the second last point, and jo italics mein hai, and these are the lines which he says. And so we see him as a romantic, we see him as a very chivalrous character, we see him as sad, we see him as gloomy. So again, Charadatta is also a round character where we see multiple personality traits of him. Now, in this play, and then later on, like, you know, in this love scene, or in the storm scene, he starts to describe the clouds and the rain, and he sort of talks about it in a very beautiful manner. So, and this poetry, you know, and all of this, like, words about how he's talking about the rain and the clouds. So this poetry sort of, you know, is inspired or is born out of the idea of viraha, right? And what really is viraha? Viraha means, like, you know, you are longing, like desire, or you're yearning for the lady love. Like, yes, they are together in the same house, but at the same time, like, you know, he's still, like, yearning means in the sense that, you know, like, to have her forever, to possess her. Okay. Next we have, now, is Charadatta a heroic character? Like, is he somebody like what I just spoke a little bit a while ago, that would you call him a character who is you know, who is brave, like, you know, who's like, is he a typical hero where he takes the action or everything? Now, that you know, we can say that you cannot call him a brave character, like, or sorry, you cannot call him a heroic character, because heroic characters also have, like, you know, good personalities. Like, you can't say he's a noble man because he's a married man, right? And he still has a desire for other women, right? He is attracted to another woman. So can you really say that he's a good person? That you know, हाँ ठीक है, वो बहुत generous है, सबको पैसे देता है, और वो बहुत sad और melancholy है, और and yeah, he's very good with expressing his love and admiration. But all of that aside, he's still getting attracted to another woman, and is that a good thing? It's like, does that still make it right? So now you have to, now in the very beginning, in the very beginning of the play, where he's attracted to Vasanta Sena, he's actually feeling very ashamed. He's feeling very embarrassed about himself. Okay, and we see that he says that, you know, he feels very embarrassed because he thinks that, oh my God, I may not gaze upon another's wife. So he assumes that Vasanta Sena must be somebody's wife, and he says that, oh, I feel so embarrassed, and I'm so ashamed of myself because I'm staring at somebody else's wife. Here, his friend Maitreya says that he should not feel ashamed because Vasanta Sena is not a courtesan. So this is a very important thing for you to keep in mind, because it is it is the idea that Vasanta Sena, because she's a quotation, meaning that she does not a wife, meaning this basically means that she doesn't particularly belong to another man. So again, the idea of woman being property, like woman belonging having a property to another man. So essentially, what is happening is Charudatta thinks that his wife, sorry, that Vasanta Sena is somebody's wife. Okay, he doesn't know who she is, and he thinks that because he's somebody's wife, she is technically a different man's property, and because she belongs to a different man, therefore he cannot look at her. However, now when he is told that she is a courtesan and you can look at her as much as you want or do whatever you want, this sort of shows that if a woman does not particularly belong to a man, like if she's not somebody's wife, then she's like just a public property that any man could take. Okay, so that's basically the idea here, that it was, so for Charudatta, it is wrong to be attracted to a woman who's a wife, but it is okay to be attracted to a courtesan, because she's technically free, like she's not claimed by another man, she's not owned by another man. Okay, she's not another man's property. So the idea is that one man will not look upon another woman because she is a different man's property. It's not simply based on the idea that just cheating, just cheating out of your marriage is just wrong. It is not based on that idea. It is based on the idea that it is okay to cheat if this other woman is free and doesn't have doesn't have a husband. Okay. Now, as I already mentioned to you, when this play was written, the relationship between prostitutes and between a courtesan or a prostitute and and another man, it was not considered to be a sinful act, and even for marriage, it was not seen as something bad. Now, and like like later in the play, even like his wife doesn't really react to it. Like even his wife doesn't say, "How dare you, tumne, how dare you? You have a courtesan or whatever." She's not mad. Or even if she is angry, we don't see it. Like we just see that she has accepted this relationship. Now keep this up. Now I want you to think. I want you to ask yourself, and I also want you to answer in this. Answer this in the question if you get a question like this. That just because something is socially accepted, does that just make it right? That's the question. Because many years ago, like not even thousands of years ago, until India became independent, untouchability was allowed. So untouchability was common, it was normal. So does that make it correct? No, it doesn't. Okay. Similarly, taking dowry was something which was common, which is still common, and does that make it correct? No, it doesn't. Okay. Similarly, so you have to understand that just because something is socially accepted does not mean that it is the right thing. Then it must be remembered that, and it also must be remembered that we see that Charudatta ki wife ne bhi maan liya, usne kuch bola nahi, usne kuch halla nahi bajaya. But you also have to remember that at that time, women's voices are what they want or what they desire, what they think, was never expressed. Like they were not given a chance, because here we do not see, like Sudraka does not give us an opportunity to see how what his wife thought. And even if she was angry, maybe even if she was unhappy about what was happening, there is a very good chance, or there is rather a good understanding that she, despite her being angry, she doesn't say anything, she doesn't do anything, because she's after all incapable. She doesn't have the, what will she do if she says that, okay, I will reject, you can't do this. Like she can't, because then if Charudatta says that, acha theek hai, you are angry na, tum nikal jao ghar se, like get out. You don't have the right to, if you don't want this, then you can just get out of the house. So because she's so dependent on Charudatta, she cannot tell Charudatta ki tum ye nahi kar sakte, tum wo nahi kar sakte, because agar Charudatta ne chhod diya to use kaun dekhega, right? Now, moving on. Now, is he a passive hero? Now, I already said that in the very beginning of the play, not in the very beginning of the play, like a few times ahead of this class, I mentioned to you that he is that he's not a typical hero, because it is not like the love story does not necessarily start like, yes, they're both attracted to each other, but the first initiative of approaching the other person is not taken by is not really done by uh, what's this person's name? It's not really done by Basanta Sena. Sorry, not really done by Chao Datta. So the hero doesn't approach the heroine as it is normally is, or as it is still pretty much in the case of most Bollywood, or so in a sense, you can say here that he's a very passive character. So he does not initiate the relationship between Basanta Sena. It is she who does it, and then whatever happens, he's sort of just let things happen. Like, he doesn't really stop anything. And one of the biggest examples would be that when he's accused of murder, he doesn't, when he's in the end of the play where the villain Samstanaka accuses him for killing Vasanta Sena, he doesn't try to fight it. Like, he doesn't say nahi maine nahi kiya, ye karo wo karo. So he just accepts his fate. To jo hoga, he just accepts it. He's even willing to die. Okay, so in this way, he's a very passive hero. Passive hero मतलब कि वो actively कुछ नहीं करता है, जो उसका होता है वो मान लेता है. And this is seen as a deviation from the norm. Deviation from the norm in the sense that कि Sanskrit drama में usually the hero is the active one. तो वो like he takes actions, he does things, okay, to change his fate or to control his fate. But here this is not the case. However, here you can also argue. Here you can argue in different ways, in the sense that like, you can argue what is going on. Like, you can say that, but that is not true. Like, despite he being passive, he has this. We see that he's extremely confident, and he is very confident in his abilities. What are his abilities? Meaning, he's very confident about कि वो Vasanta Sena को पटा लेगा, even though उसके पास कोई पैसा वैसा नहीं है. He's confident that Vasanta Sena will still like him back. And why? Because he thinks, because he has, and his abilities are what, like having a very beautiful poetic mind and so on and so on. So he's confident in that sense. Okay, then he's also the one who helps Arak escape. Remember how Arak this person was imprisoned by the current evil king, and this guy escapes Vasanta Sena, Charudatta discovers Arak in his cart, in his bullock cart, and he allows Arak to go away. He says, okay, you know what, you can take my cart and run away, right? He also very proactively, he helps poor people, okay? And the last interpretation would be that even though, and you can say that, the fact that why he doesn't resist, his death, that he was said that, okay, when he was accused of killing Vasanta Sena, he doesn't revolt, he doesn't protest against it, he doesn't do anything about it, because this could also be interpreted that because he thinks that Vasanta Sena is actually dead, he's just so sad that he no longer has the will to live without Vasanta Sena anymore, and therefore he just sort of accepts his death. Okay, now I am now going to we still have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 slides left. So what I'm going to do is I am actually going to continue with this, and in the end of the class, I will look at whatever questions you have. Okay, now I just want to keep continuing because I have a flow going and I don't want to really break it. All right, and it is just better for you all guys also to keep following the text. So now we would just look at some of the main themes of the play. What are the main thematic elements of the play? So one of the first things is that of course love is the central theme of the play. And apparently there are three main types of love. Okay, the first, of course, the very obvious kind of romantic love is like, where hero heroine meet, they fall in love, and then there is a whole part of courtship, where, or what in today's world we would call dating, but like courtship matlab you start coming closer to each other, and you spend time together, things like that. So that's what we call courtship. So firstly, of course, there's the idea of love between Charudatta and Vasanta Sena, and this sort of defines, and this sort of sets the tone of the story, because this is ultimately the main plot of the story, right? And and despite the fact that, and here's the thing, like as I said, that Vasanta Sena might have a lot of money, independence, but she just has bad reputation precisely because she's a prostitute. Like she's not respected in the society. Okay, and even then, Charudatta falls in love with her because even though he's a Brahmin, so you can interpret it in a positive way, meaning that for Charudatta, it doesn't matter what a person's social status is, and he doesn't care that the fact that she is casteless, that she's an outcast, even though he himself is a Brahmin. So that's just one of the ways you can interpret it. And then there's a point in the play, in fact, where his friend Maitri says that it's fine that you find her attractive, but you cannot possibly have a relationship with her, and especially because she is because especially because the king's brother-in-law is also attracted to her, and if you are trying to if you try to do something with the with this woman, then you're calling for trouble. So don't do that. Like so he's saying that first thing he says that, look, it's okay. Like one time, like a one time only thing with a quotation is fine, but come on, like she has bad reputation. Like you can't be in love with this person. And secondly, he says that you should not be in love with this person because ये Vasanta Sena इसके पीछे जो किंग का जो ब्रदर इन लॉ है वो पड़ा है, तो you don't want to compete with this person, you don't want to make this other person angry because he has political power, or he's wealthy and has power, right? But but when Maitri tries to tell him all these things, like his friend Maitri, his desire for his desire for Vasanta Sena even increases, and this is kind of very symbolic of this is very symbolic of the idea that that जो आपको बोला जाता है कि you can't have it, the more attracted you feel towards that. Okay, so so that could be one of the interpretations, right? Like when you're told that you can't do this or you can't have this, the more you want it, right? So this is basically what is going on. And then Matthew also says that you can never reason with a lover, and here the idea is that love makes you blind and it makes you do stupid things, and you become very emotional, you don't no longer think with your mind. So this trajectory, like this Charudatta and Vasanta Sena love story is a very conventional type of love story. Okay, now and then we have the second version of love story, which is the one with Sarvalika and Mandanika. Sarvalika, again, I want to remind you, is the poor Brahmin who steals the jewels from Charudatta's house to free his love Mandanika, who's a slave, kind of a slave servant of Vasanta Sena, right? Now, this is a very controversial, like it's shown in a bit of a controversial light, because the idea, like he steals from, he's a Brahmin, and it's a Brahmin, like Sharvalika is a Brahmin as well, and he's the one who steals who steals jewels from somebody's house. This is not something which Brahmins are supposed to do, so it's a bit problematic. However, he does it, like he steals because he wants to end the bondage of a woman he dearly loves. So Mandanika, who he loves, is basically bound as a servant for life, is bound as a servant for life for Vasanta Sena, and he wants to buy her freedom. He wants to free her from that bondage. So therefore he steals. So and then after he frees her, after he frees Mandanika, they immediately get married. Okay, and here there's another contrast, because the contrast is that Vasanta Sena and Charudatta, they can never get married because Charudatta is already a married man. However, there's a contrast here because Charvalika and Mandanika, they just when she becomes free, they get married. This is something which Vasanta Sena and Charudatta cannot do. Now, the third kind of love is probably the most important kind of love, and it is not really shown that clearly, is basically the love and devotion of Charudatta's wife towards her husband, and it is not, and I think the most important scene, in fact, or rather, to show that just how devoted she is and how willingly she is able to sort of accept her husband, having a quotation and having another love, is seen in the scene that so after, remember how Sharvalika, he steals the jewelry, right? Steals Vasanta Sena's jewelry from Charadatta's house. And when the theft happens, they think that अच्छा अब हम बसंता सेना को क्या वापस करेंगे, वो अपना ज्वेलरी यहाँ छोड़ के गई थी और वो तो चोरी हो गया, तो अब हम उसे क्या वापस करेंगे. तो उसकी वाइफ, तो चारुदत्ता की वाइफ बोलती है कोई बात नहीं, ये मेरा पर्ल नेकलेस है, ये तुम जाके उसे दे दो, like you give this to her. So not only not only is she okay, like she is accepting, or she's not revolting against the fact that her husband has an affair, she's also willing to give her own jewelry to this other woman. She can say कि हाँ तो गया तो गया, मैं क्या करूँ, तुम तो like why are you keeping this quotations thing in your house, like जो करना है, like whatever, do whatever you want. Now here's the thing, right? So his she's ready to like sort of give away her prized possessions. So she's ready to say ki, she's saying, okay, this is my pearl necklace, go give it to her, and she only does it so that Chaudatta is happy, and that is extremely, that is so sacrificing in the sense. You get it, the whole point about not just accepting your husband's affair, but also sort of giving your own jewelry to her. Yeah. Now the idea of infidelity means cheating. You're cheating on somebody. So it is a very prominent theme here, of course, and it is glorified. Glorified matlab ki it is shown as if it's a normal thing, as if it's a positive thing. And how is it? Like, it is not even shown as normal. It is shown as something which is glorified. It means ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. And how is it glorified? क्योंकि ultimately the story is between, the main plot of the story is between Charudatta and Vasanta Sena. And the fact that Charudatta is married, and yet this is the main theme of the story, shows that cheating karna is fine. So it's not even fine. ये तो करो, like there's nothing wrong with it. Okay. Now, Charudatta is married to a very devout wife, like as I already discussed, and he also has, and she's ready to do anything and everything. Like it's not that she's a bad wife, so he has nothing to complain about. Okay, and he also has a nice child. He also has a son, so it's not just a wife. He also has a kid. And then remember that he is a Brahmin, and Brahmin are supposed to do puja part karte hain wo log mandir mein jaake, and all of that. And yet, it is as a Brahmin, he falls for another woman. And the reason why he falls for her, why he falls in love with her, is precisely because she is a courtesan, and no other man has claim over her. So she's just like available. She's available, so he sort of claims her, like, so he falls for her. And then, he openly just goes around saying, I'm in love with Vasanta Sena, I am in love with her. And he doesn't think about his wife's feelings for a second. He doesn't think how his wife would feel. And here is the thing, right? So there is also a huge hypocrisy in the society, because, okay, we can say that, okay, infidelity is fine. Everybody can be infidel, men can. But here, the issue is that only men are allowed to be infidel. Like, men are allowed to go and have multiple sexual relationships, or multiple relationships, but women are not allowed that. Like, women cannot do it. Okay, so women are not given this permission. They're not given this option to do this. Okay, it is only the men who can who have this option. Now the idea here is pretty much like how would I, so it just basically the hypocrisy of it, that you are fine with people being infidel, but at the same time only men are allowed to do it. Women are not allowed to do it. And he just goes around saying, I love Vatsasantana, but he doesn't care about his wife. He doesn't think how his wife would feel. Okay, and this is also true for even Vasanta Sena. Like, sometimes the whole system of patriarchy is really not just controlled by women. It's not just controlled by men. Women are also equally responsible in continuing these very patriarchal in ideas of where men have unfair advantages. So even Vasanta Sena does not say that no, I will not love you, or I will not pursue this because you are a married man. She doesn't care about this other woman. She doesn't care about another person who has the same gender, has the same sex as her. Like she doesn't care about the other woman. She doesn't think that it's a bad thing that, she's seducing another man's wife. Now in the end, now and towards the end, like the wife doesn't really reject the relationship. She doesn't protest the relationship. She just accepts it. And as I said, like her acceptance could be for two reasons. One is that she is so in love and she's so devoted to to Charudatta that she doesn't have a problem with whatever Charudatta does. And second is that even if she did have a problem, she can't do anything about it because she's completely dependent on Charudatta, right? Now, the next topic I want to focus on is the topic of poverty. Now, we see that the poverty issue is something that is like, from the very beginning we see that Charadatta is poor. And why is he poor? Because he has given away all his money, all his wealth to his friends, to other poor people to help him. And when he becomes poor, he realizes some, like, very difficult, some very piercing truths. So for example, after he becomes poor, all his friends, like, they abandon him. So in the sense that, this brings out, like, this sort of represents the true color, the true color of people, right? So so in the sense that they are seen as completely, how would I say, they're seen as, like, evil characters. They're seen as, oh, जब उन्हें चारुदत्ता की जरूरत थी, then they were very nice to him, right? When he had all these well wishes, but when now Charudatta himself was poor, they all just vanished. Like, they take Charudatta's help, but when Charudatta himself now needs help, they don't care about him. They vanish. Okay, they abandon him. And another thing which sort of comes up is that those who are poor, they do not have that much influence, and this is even true now. Like, if you are poor, you are less likely to be able to defend yourself, and you are more likely to face injustice because you don't have the power, you don't have the money to influence other people. Okay, so for example, in this case, Charudatta is convicted. He's convicted of he's falsely accused of a crime, that he has killed Vasanta Sena. And the reason why they think is that they assume very easily, they assume very comfortably that Vasanta Sena was killed by Charudatta is precisely because he's poor. Because they think that Charudatta ने Vasanta Sena को इसलिए मार डाला because Charudatta को Vasanta Sena का jewelry box चाहिए था, उसको उसका wealth चाहिए था. So his poverty is basically becomes is seen as an excuse, seen as a reason of murder. Okay, and because he's poor, he has this, he's convicted of murder, which is of course injustice because उसने ऐसा कुछ नहीं किया. And the idea basically becomes that he's not able to defend himself. Of course, he can't do anything. He doesn't have any power. He doesn't have any influence, so he can't ask somebody कि नहीं मुझे बचाओ or whatever. And poverty is just seen as कि अच्छा गरीब है तो तभी वो ऐसे कर रहा है, ठीक है? Now, now the next topic that you must focus on is the topic of jealousy. Now, what do we really mean by jealousy? So jealousy is basically one of the purest forms of emotion. Okay, so it is one of the things that is something which is very inherent in our society, and it's a kind of emotion which we always have, right? It is, and in Mirjakathika, in this play, we see jealousy in two characters. One is Sanstanaka and the other one is Maitreya. Now, Sanstanaka is obviously a more what would I say, a more obvious example of somebody who's a jealous man. And for those who don't remember, Sanstanaka is the villain of the story, and he is the evil son-in-law, father. He is the evil brother-in-law of the king, of the current king, not King Arak, जो बाद में king बनेगा, जो अभी का जो king है, उसका brother-in-law है, ठीक है? And he, of course, so being the brother-in-law of king means that उसके पास बहुत power है, ये है वो है, influence है. So Samsanaka is basically the main character who shows jealousy, and what really happens here is that he's really attracted to Vasanta Sena, And now whether it is, now we don't know whether it is just love or lust. In most probability it's lust, I would say. And when he realizes, तो जब उसको बाद में पता चलता है कि वसंता सिन्हा उसे इसे इसलिए रिजेक्ट कर रही है क्योंकि you know she is because she is in love with this poor Brahmin, she is in love with this child, that he becomes so angry, he becomes so jealous that he makes a plot, okay, which ultimately did end up failing. So what he does is he's so jealous that he tries to kill Vasanta Sena, और वो उसको लगता है कि उसने मार डाला है. This is that he later on we find out that she isn't dead. He tries to kill Vasanta Sena because he cannot tolerate the fact that this woman that he wants to possess, that this woman that he loves actually loves somebody else. So she is so jealous that he kills Vasanta Sena, thinking that how dare she can be with this other person, okay. And all of this sort of, you know, just reflects on things which you know, like it's just very common things, like it even happens till now, that he is jealous that, oh, she doesn't love me, so I'm going to kill her so that she cannot be with anybody else. Similarly, he's also extremely jealous of Charudatta because he thinks ki iski wajah se, you know, it is because of you that she's rejecting me. He's jealous that Charudatta has Vasanta Sena. How dare he has Vasanta? How dare he has this woman which I want to have? So therefore, he thinks that he has killed Vasanta Sena, and then he tries to falsely accuse Charudatta that इसने मारा है Vasanta Sena को, so that उसको भी फांसी लग जाए. Okay, so basically Vasanta Sena को खुद मार देता है because he is so jealous that वो उसे प्यार, you know, she doesn't love him back, and then he tries to you know, show that Charudatta is the murderer because he's also jealous of Charudatta because Vasanta Sena ने Charudatta के लिए उसे reject कर दिया. Okay, so this is the theme of jealousy. Now, another way jealousy is portrayed is that, you know, who is, you know, who like Maitri is this character who is Charudatta's friend, huh? And he's also a pro-Brahmin, and he actually just completely hates being poor, and inwardly he's very jealous and very insecure about other people having a lot of money. Like he thinks, and he's very jealous of the fact that दूसरे लोगों के पास ज़्यादा पैसा है and they have a better life than him and he doesn't. That's a minor point of jealousy in this character, but main character would be Sudraka if you talk about jealousy. Now, the idea of friendship, yeah. So we have 3 more slides, guys. So I think I should be able to do it in another maybe 10-15 minutes, and then we will have another 15 minutes for some questions that I will take. Yeah, so friendship, we of course see the idea of friendship, you know, portrayed in different levels. So there are different characters, and so the first pair would be Charudatta and Maitreya, and the other pair is Sharvalika and Arakya. I hope I will not repeat who Sharvalika is. So Sharvalika is the poor Brahmin, right? And he ends up marrying a girl. He ends up marrying Mandanika, and he does that how? He basically steals to buy her freedom. Okay, and when he does that, as soon as he hears that his friend Arakya, who's supposed to be the future king, and that he has escaped from prison, and he immediately promises to help him, that yes, I will help you, and I will try to and I will help you to become the king again, which he ultimately successfully does. Okay, and here these two characters, like Sarvalika and Arakya, of course they have this strong bond of friendship. Like Sarvalika just gets married, but when his friend needs him, he immediately goes to his friend to help him, right? And so there's a strong bond between the two characters, and they're both sort of united because they're both rebels. For example, Sharvalika is a kind of a rebel because you know, he steals jewelry, right? But that doesn't, of course, you know, stealing is a bad thing, but he's doing it for a good reason. He's doing it to free a woman who is treated as a slave, right? So he's a rebel. And also Arakya is a rebel because he was imprisoned by the current king, and he tries to take his kingdom back by rebellion. So they are bonded by their rebellious actions. Like they're very similar in that sense. On the other hand, we have the character of Charudatta and Maitreya, and you know, and they are also very good friends. Like they're very close to each other, but they're not really bonded by rebellion, like they're not doing any adventure, they're not something like that. They're sort of bonded because they're both very poor, and they are both complaining about, they both like to complain about, how poor they are and how sad that is. Okay, so so that's how they are connected. And even though, and Maitreya is also an extremely useful, like he's a very good, a very helpful friend. And the examples of it is basically that even though Maitreya does not really approve of their relationship, and he doesn't really like Vasanta Sena, he is against his friend having a relationship with the courtesan, and he doesn't like it. And yet still he tries to, he always, when Charulata says ki Vasanta Sena ko ye message deke aao or Vasanta Sena ko yahan pe bulao, so he always does that. Like he doesn't want to, but he still does it because his friend wants him to. Okay, now loyalty and injustice. Okay, so this is the last topic. And what do we understand by the concept of loyalty? I'm just going to check how many questions I have. Okay, so not that many. Yeah, guys, so we are going to be done pretty quickly now. So maybe another 5 to 10 minutes. So I will take the questions in the end, and if you really want to, like after we finish, so I would really urge you to put your questions forward. And if you don't have any questions after I finish the last two slides, you are very welcome to leave. You don't have to stick around. But what I usually do is, if I see a good question which has been said, because all of you cannot see what other people are sending me, right? In the Q&A, only I can see it. So if it's a good question, I publish it so that you can also get an idea of what the person is saying, or if I get a good comment. Okay, so let's wrap this up, and I hope that it was more or less helpful. So the last topic that we are doing is the idea of loyalty and injustice. And we already, I've already touched a little bit about the idea of injustice before, but here, loyalty, and during the time of the time where when Sudraka was writing, or when this play was written, the idea of loyalty was one of the most important things, one of the most important factors in society. That being loyal to your king, to your wife, to your blah blah blah, basically means that you are a good person. Now, here so one of the examples is, of course, the loyalty towards friendship. Okay, so as I just said in the last slide, that Sarvalika just separates, he is newly married, but he leaves his wife because he wants to be loyal to his friend Arakya. He wants to help Arakya win back his his kingdom. Similarly, another instance of loyalty would be that when Arak escapes from the prison, and when the other king's guards are hunting him, Charulata helps him escape. Charulata gives him his bullock and says, okay, you go. So Arakya remembers this. Arakya remembers कि Charulata ने उसकी help करी थी, and so in order to sort of display his loyalty, he gives Charulata a lot of money back. जो money Charulata ने गरीबों में बांट दिया था. Okay, so he sort of restores Charulata's fortune. Okay, and another important aspect of loyalty is usually the aspect of loyalty between a king and his soldiers. So ये मैंने लिखा नहीं है, so just listen to it. The idea would be that, for example, you remember when Arakya, remember that Arakya is supposed to be the real king. तो अभी जो प्ले में पूरे प्ले में जो किंग जो हम देखते हैं, किंग पलका, he is not he's not supposed to be the king. तो Arakya is the true king, तो उसको वो ट्रैप करके रखता है, and जब Arakya वहां से भाग जाता है, तो he sends his soldiers to find him. And there is this one scene, I'm sure that, I don't know if you remember, where there are two soldiers who find Arakya. Okay, and one of them knows and is aware that Arakya should be the rightful king. तो वो क्या करता है कि he does not let his other companion capture Arakya. तो वो अपने companions से लड़ता है, like दूसरे soldier से लड़ता है, उसको पकड़ने नहीं देता Arakya को. Like तो बोलता है Arakya को बोलता है भाग जा. So in the sense, he is actually, so you can say that, should he be loyal to the current king, or why is he showing loyalty to this other king? Now this soldier shows loyalty to Arakya because Arakya is supposed to be the rightful king. Okay. So again, that aspect of loyalty. Now the aspect of loyalty between husband and wife, that is the only loyalty we do not see. The wife is loyal to the husband, but the husband is not loyal to the wife. Okay, so there's loyalty in friendship, there's loyalty between kingdom and soldiers, and so on. There's loyalty between, even just between men and men, like Charadatta helps Arakya escape later on, and so he sort of repays back by giving back Charadatta's fortune. Okay, so there's that sense of loyalty. Now, when we talk about injustice, I already talked about how Charadatta is accused of a crime which he didn't commit. He was accused of murdering Basanta Sena, which actually did not really happen. Now. Now, even when he is accused, now Samstanaka's slave actually tries to tell people that no, Charadatta ne nahi mara hai, Samstanaka ne mara hai, and even then nobody believes him. Nobody believes him because he's a slave. So ye, like गरीब क्या है, वो तो गरीब से भी बुरा हाल है उसका, like he's a slave. तो because he's a slave, nobody wants to believe him, and also because now it really shows that justice, like getting justice is only something which only privileged people can have. So because ये जो crime जिसने commit किया है, who is a powerful man, Samstanaka is a powerful man, तो even जो उसके against जो evidence आ रहा है, एक आई विटनेस आके बोल रहा है कि नहीं चौदत्ता ने नहीं मारा है, Samstanaka ने मारा है, तभी भी कुछ नहीं होता है because we see that he's a privileged man, so nobody can touch him, nobody can harm him. And this is actually very true even in today's world, right? Because there are criminals and there are rapists and there are a lot of people who are doing awful things, and yet they have money and they can hire good lawyers, right? And they go free, like उनको साथ कुछ नहीं होता है, while people who are very poor and who are sort of wrongly accused of crimes that they did or didn't do. So basically those things are sort of seen. They're sort of seen as things that could be that still continues till today, that justice जो है वो गरीबों को और जो poor है उनको नहीं मिलती है because they don't have the power to defend themselves, right? So that's so this idea is actually very relatable, that it's still even happening after some like 2000 years or whatever. Now, in conclusion, I will just sort of draw on some of the main things. Of course, do keep in mind this is not a comprehensive conclusion. We are not talking about everything in this. So what is really happening ultimately in Sudraka's Mirchakatika is that it is a masterpiece in its own regard. And in fact, unlike Kalidasa, so unlike Shakuntala, which is extremely popular in India, it has a universal appeal. Like, Mirchakatika has a universal appeal because it is talking about things that are not just specific to India during ancient India. He's talking about things that are still specific even now, and they're not just specific in the Indian context, or actually some of these ideas are specific or can be applied to things happening all over the world. Okay, so it's not something that you have to think, oh, it's a play because it shows what used to happen in ancient India. He's still showing things that are still prevalent around the world, and this is actually one of the reasons why, because it is just so representative of a lot of issues that are still relevant and that are still happening all around the world. This play has been adapted and has been researched more in the West, like outside of India, than it has been done here. Okay, and for example, it is talking about themes which are like extramarital affairs happen everywhere, and even now, the idea of jealousy, which we see again, which happens, like people killing somebody out of jealousy is also very common. It still happens. So what he's really showing is it's still like it's representative of even stories today. So, and they are found in all kinds of literature. So it's kind of like the play sort of represents how human social work really even functions now. And then finally, the idea of the concept of karma, or the cyclic nature of life, meaning, for example, the whole thing about, you do well, like kar bhala to ho bhala, basically. And the cyclical nature of life is also connected to the idea of the clay cart, because the clay cart has a wheel, which I said, the chakra, right? And cyclical nature के क्या examples होंगे? For example, वसंत सेना उस शैम्पू वाले को हेल्प करती है, उसका कर्जा पे कर देती है, और एंड में जब क्या होता है कि जब वसंत सेना को संस्थाना का मतलब गला घोट देता है, तो ये बंदा जो जिसका कर्जा चुकाया था पहले Vasanta Sena ne, he comes and now he's a monk, okay, and he comes and he saves Vasanta Sena, takes her to a cemetery. So she had done something good to this person, and this person in return does something good. Similarly, Chardatta ne Arak ko bhagने में help करी थी, तो now that Arak is king, he repays her back, like he repays him back. He says that तुम अभी गरीब हो तो तुम ये ले लो वो ले लो, and things like that. And as in, like, he says that, okay, you saved me, so I don't want you to be poor anymore, so I'm giving you all this wealth. And he also says that, chalo, because you love Vasanta Sena and she is a courtesan, and of course, because you cannot marry a courtesan, so iski wajah se I will free Vasanta Sena from being a courtesan. Like, she doesn't have to be a courtesan anymore, so you can be with her. So this is what Arak does, like, to repay the kindness of Charadatta. Now, and they finally, there is a silent acceptance of Charadatta's wife, of what he does, like, of having this extramarital affair. And this is reflective of a time where women were under total submission of their husbands, and they accepted all their demands. So we have finished this, and I hope that this was a helpful, a useful class. Now, if you have no other questions, if you have no other doubts, you can leave. You don't have to really stick around. So this is not something that you really have to do. Okay. I'm going to look at the questions which are coming in, and I don't see that many questions today, so that's a good thing, so that I can sort of look at all the comments that has come in. And if you are done with the class, if you don't want to sort of keep sticking around for me to sort of see some of the questions here, you can leave. And all the very best, and I will see you for my last class with you on the 21st. Okay, so goodbye for those who are leaving. Yeah. Okay. So Ritika is asking, how does a clay cart is represented as a domestic thing? A clay cart is represented as a domestic thing because it is not like it's a toy clay cart. It is not like an actual clay cart. Well, yeah, a toy clay cart. And the idea here is that it is something that the child is playing with, right? And so, like, वो एक घरेलू चीज है basically. बच्चा खेल रहा है उससे. So it's not like, like, would you say a machine gun is not a domestic thing, right? So it's something which is very simple, very domestic. So it becomes a sign of domesticity. Okay. That is Ritika's question. Some of the questions I will not attend because I keep telling you that you should not be. This is something which I repeatedly tell in every class, and I still get this question every time, that, ma'am, do we need to read any other books, other than Sol material? No, you don't really need to do it, but you do need to read like Sol material is for you to understand the book. So you definitely need to read the course books. So you need to read the book which is Vichakatika, and that's why in every class I'm showing you a picture of which book to buy. So I will just, agar aapko help, like, this is the book you should be buying. Now, what is the meaning of economic strata? Economic strata matlab ki aap kis class mein belong karte ho? Are you lower class? Are you upper class? Are you middle class? So, and by class I mean like class, not caste. Okay, so जो बहुत गरीब है वो lower caste है, जो middle class है middle class, upper class जो बहुत rich and famous हैं वो, like, not even famous, well, rich people, so that. prostitutes didn't have any rights. Like they didn't have the right to own property. They couldn't get married. They couldn't. They were not allowed to have land or property like that. So yes, so they, yeah, in that sense they know, they like some of the rights, no, they didn't have. Ma'am, the story does not say Charudatta loved her. Yes, the story does say that he loved her. That's why he's singing all these songs and poems to her. Yeah, but then, like, just saying that I love you is not the only way to express love. Okay, Divya. Ananya is saying, ma'am, can we say the title wants to show the readers the fair and good nature of Vasanta Sena, as the work of a prostitute is never given respect and not treated equally as a woman? Yes, you can say that. You can, like, that scene, that little scene with the clay card where she gives away her jewels to Rohan Sena is a sign of, her being very generous and her being very kind, and it also sort of represents that she's craving domesticity and that she wants to be a part of that, she wants to be a mother, and she wants to be a part of this world. Okay, so good question, Ananya. I will just publish it so other people can also read it. Ma'am, meaning of robustness. Robustness means something you do it very actively with a lot of willing. Okay. Meaning of paradox. Meaning of paradox means something which is contradictory. Like a paradox would be that how she is also, how Vasanta Sena is also an object of desire. Like she's an object of desire, that she's seen as a thing that men want. But at the same time, she's an independent subject. Like she's an independent woman where she's making her own money and she has her own liberty and freedom. Right? She's not dependent on any man. That would be paradox. Meaning of, can we ask questions in Hindi? No. And ma'am, why Vasanta Sena visited Chardatta as Abhisarika? I don't understand. Ma'am, Vasanta Sena was married or unmarried? She was an unmarried woman because she's a courtesan. Ma'am, Vasanta Sena basically not the wife of Chardatta, and her wife don't have any problem. Ma'am, does it mean that married women at that time who do not work? Yeah, married women at that time did not work. Okay, because like the women were not supposed to be working women. Like women were supposed to be at home taking care of their kids and husband. What are our assignments and when and how do we submit them? This is not. Firstly, I have asked you multiple times to do not ask me questions anonymously. So no answers for that person. There should be a character analysis for Charadatta's wife also. True, but then I did talk about Charadatta's wife, and it's difficult to analyze a character when you don't see the character at all. Like she's very quiet, and that's the whole point. Like she's silent throughout. Okay. Okay, what else do we have? Is there anyone in the play who has flat personality? So practically, you can say that almost all other characters have a flat personality. It's only because we only see that Samstanaka is evil, and Maitri is a good friend, and we see Arakya, the future king, and so it's like that. So usually, like all the minor characters are flat characters because you can't develop every single character, right? So I hope that helps, Surbi. Is that your question? Virha is the pain of being away, generally denoting separation from a lover. True, Virha is the pain of being away, but but even in this scene, he is around. Like even in the scene, what is happening is that he is craving for Vasanta Sena, and she might be even if she's in front of him, he still cannot possess. He still cannot have her, right? Like especially अपने घर पे तो नहीं करेगा ना क्योंकि उसकी वाइफ और उसके बच्चे भी वहाँ पे हैं तो so that's why there's that sense of Vira, like इतने दूर इतने पास फिर भी इतने दूर kind of a thing, if that makes more sense. What are our assignments? No. What is our timeline? Ma'am, difference between courtesan and prostitute. So we talked about this at length in the last class, that a courtesan is somebody who is a prostitute is just somebody who has sex for money. Okay, a quotation is somebody who, she is also very well, like she's very well trained in etiquettes, like she would know how to sing, she would know how to dance, so she would know all the 64 forms of art, and art and craft is called the 64 colors. So that's in that sense. So they are very refined, and that they are very like they're also like entertainers in a sense. They're not just women who have sex for money. Okay, that's the difference. So Ekta is saying, and this is quite a good, she has sort of split the question into halves. So she's saying that, as you said, that looking at Vasanta Sena is not wrong for Chaudatta, as she does not belong to any man as per society of the time. I am not saying this. This is the logic behind male thinking, that they think that they can look at another woman as long as she doesn't belong to another man. Okay, so this is not something which is right. This is something which men think is right. Okay. Then your question sort of continues and says, will it still be considered as something not wrong if Vasanta Sena was someone else's unmarried daughter or some orphan child? It would still be, that's a good question. Ekta, I'm going to publish it because it is not something which is seen. It is not something which is seen as like, that's the idea, like, if it is somebody's unmarried daughter, or if it's an orphan or whatever, then they would still have to sort of go the traditional way, like you don't and then marry this woman before you do anything with her. But because she is effectively a courtesan, because she is effectively somebody who is a courtesan, and her job is basically seen to please men, therefore it is not wrong to look at her. Okay, so you have to understand that how they are sort of treating, so she's not seen as a respectable woman. So I just, like, a woman supposedly to be respected, you should not be looking at, but because she's a courtesan, you can stare at her like that. That's allowed. Basically, that's the logic. Somebody is asking for me to scroll down to PPT 15. What are you looking at here? There you go. If you're still here, you can look at PPT 15. Continuing, more questions. Ma'am, Chaudatta has passive character. Yes, in some ways he has passive characters, but not always. Okay, Ma'am, Chaudatta having passive character. Could you say that? Shavilika is more active than Chaudatta in his own story and terms. Yes, very good. You're right, Priya. Chaudatta's wife's love for him makes her kind on her mistakes. Yes, you can say this is love for him. It also could be that she doesn't have, like, she cannot protest it. She can't do anything about it because she's completely dependent on him. Ananya has another comment. Ma'am, here, how we know that Chaudatta's wife was really aware of the feelings of Chaudatta for Vasanta Sena, as he had never revealed his feelings for Vasanta Sena in front of his wife. She gave her pearl necklace as she thought that Vasanta Sena has given her a treat. Yeah, but there are a lot of, like, women are not so stupid, and the idea is that we do know what is happening. Like, the idea is that she's not a completely idiotic person, and the whole thing that, why would she not think about why is this random? Why is Vasanta Sena just coming and leaving jewelry in Chaudatta's house? So yes, you can interpret it as, okay, usko to pata hi nahi tha, to isliye wo kar rahi thi. But you have to understand that women are not stupid. They can find out, they can realize that these things are happening. And of course, everything that we see in the play is not everything that is going on. A lot of things are happening behind the scenes as well, like which the dramatist is not actually showing on stage, and which he wants you to understand that, yes, because he thinks that you will assume that this will happen. Okay, so the idea is not so much that isko pata. It could be one of the interpretations. Sure, you can write this, Ananya, if you want to, but the chances are that she knew that those are the high chances. Okay. Okay. Ma'am, please teach us in the second class. What do you want me to, or do you want me to teach the European paper? I don't know, but did Chaudatta really kill? No, of course he did not kill Vasanta Sena. I told you the whole thing, that it was Sudraka who tries to kill her, and she doesn't even die. So, ma'am, sexual attraction is a biological fact. Yes. Okay. Please refer a guide or book to study. Just study this. That's it. You don't need to do much. And you can read the solved material, which is available on their website. I wanted to ask you that for the whole semester. People really go on Solve website and look at the syllabus. If you think that this entire semester is only has one book, then I am sorry, you're in for a shock. This is just one unit. You have 5 units. You have mentioned that Charadatta's wife just accepts Vasanta Sena and her husband's relationship, and that she's submissive to the idea, to that idea. But could this not be viewed as her own agency, her violation to do so? People do such things in love and relation, and she's loyal. Very good, very good. Okay, that's a good interpretation. You can say that. I'm going to publish it so other people can also read your very, very good, very thoughtful comment. Well done. Will Charlotta's wife be considered a victim of injustice? Yes, Khushi. She is technically a victim of injustice because her husband gets to have an affair, she doesn't, so it's not particularly quite fair. Ma'am, word justice. What happened to Vasanta Sena's husband? Does not have a husband. The tail of the anklet, I cannot teach you that. Like, I am not like, so what we are assigned, where we can only, so people were asking me to teach Kalidasa, and that's not possible. I'm sorry, because I don't have the time to teach it. Like, they give us very specific classes, and this is unfortunate because when we do like regular classes, I do the whole, like, I would be doing the whole syllabus, but it's just that's just how things is. Ma'am, can you explain Bhasa, please? Bhasa is just one another Indian playwright. You don't have to really go into it. Like, a benedictory and prudent act means एक अच्छा काम और एक thoughtful काम करना. Okay. Who is the king, brother of Sudraka? He's not the brother. He's the brother-in-law. The king is King Palak, the evil king, जिसको अरक finally हरा देता है. Ma'am, Maitreya Sena was a devotee friend of Charadatta. Maitreya Sena, okay. So why he bought the jewels? No, he brings the jewels in the end, not because not to accuse, not to really. That's just something which is a coincidence. It is not done intentionally, okay. Yeah, Sonam, if karma is one of the concepts, then Charadatta should also get what he did to his wife. But unfortunately, for Sudraka, he does not think that he's done something bad. Like for Sudraka, what Charadatta is doing is fine. So therefore, Charadatta is not punished for being infidel. I really appreciate your teaching style. Thank you. The topic is clear, and the way you explain things is just lovely. Thank you. Ma'am, is there any home assignment for us? No assignments, nothing. Ma'am, where can we get this PDF from? This PDF would be shared by, I will share this. And then don't worry, it will reach you if you're in WhatsApp group. Thank you. What is the moral? There's no moral of the story. Okay. Like, don't literature stories do not always have morals. This is not school. What is the feature of Nataka and Prakarna? Nataka is just like Natak, and Prakarna is basically plays which specifically talk about human life, which talk about normal human characters. As we already know that the clay cart is not an important part of the play, then why it is? Why is the clay cart an important title of the play? I just explained everything in the beginning, so you need to go watch that. I will not repeat it again. Ma'am, when Araka becomes king, then he can help Charudatta, not Charugupta, from the blame of murdering Vasanta Sena, because he know that he like her. So why don't he support her? Does it make sense? The name of the book to buy for Mahabharata is a book by a man called J.A.B. Buchanan. J-A-B, Buchanan. Just go to a bookstore and ask be honest first year Mahabharata ki book chahiye. They know which one it is. They will give it to you. What about Sanstanaka when he was found culprit of harming her? So उसको उसको चारुदत्ता forgive कर देता है. चारुदत्ता कुछ करता नहीं है उसके against, वो उसको छोड़ देता है. That's what happens. Man, then why people say it's a bad thing? Ma'am, Ma'am, are prostitutes now allowed to have property or any rights? Well, firstly, prostitution is illegal. So, prostitutes are not allowed to exist in the first place. Is it important to use anglicized versions of English names, themes, text? Not really. You don't have to if you don't want to. Ma'am, I guess Vasant Sinha's caste is not mentioned because at that time no one, that's his daughter, sister, or anyone would be a courtesan. True, and courtesans are seen as outcasts, so they're outside the caste system. Okay, so that's also why she. Ma'am, let's say extramarital affairs is not a privilege to man as well as women. So what we students should consider. Okay. Can you change your English honors course to BA? You can, but you need to talk to Saul about it. I'm not very sure if you can do this. Okay. I've gone through all the comments. Thank you very much, everybody. I am ready to leave now. All the best. Take care. Good luck. Bye. Bye. Good luck.